I'm Em Sutter, better known as Pints and Panels.
And I'm Don Tess, better known as the Dawn of Beer.
Welcome to episode 40 of the All About Beer podcast. Every 2 weeks, we talk with leading experts and take a deep dive into one topic in beer. This week on the show, we're going to be talking about what the hell happened to the Black IPA and where is it and I want to drink one. Sorry, all right, I'll calm down. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And if you're feeling generous, visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. So Don, do you also want a Black IPA? I mean, remember 10 years ago, they were everywhere. And now, I guess we're talking to two brewers who brew them still, but
they're pretty rare.
Super rare.
Yeah. No, I did enjoy them at the time. I do still enjoy them. I enjoy any beer, I think, that is well made. And I also find it interesting because at least to my palate, hops taste different when they're presented with dark malt. So looking forward to, learning why that is and how these brewers think about that.
I've never thought about that way before, but I bet our guests will have some great thoughts about that because today we're going to be talking to two breweries, one from the West Coast, one from the East Coast, and why they still brew this sadly forgotten style.
Oh, so sad.
Oh, so sad. Bring it back. But first, if you would like to help support the All About Beer podcast, reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. Speaking of supporting the show, here's a word from our sponsors.
Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They are all about lager, rooted in German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinct recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high-gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol-free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and know more about it on Instagram at Estrella Galicia, USA.
Paul Philippon was working a summer job while in college in 1987 when, at the end of his shift, his supervisor made the offhand comment that he had to get home to bottle his latest batch of homebrew. Fireworks went off in Paul's mind as he contemplated the idea that a person could make homebrew beer at home. He asked about it, and his supervisor said, "Well, yeah, sure, it's easy. Just go to the Summer Meadow herb shop, and Teresa, okay, will tell you what to do and sell you the supplies." He did as his supervisor said, and he was hooked. Fast forward 7 years to find Paul in graduate school pursuing a very unrelated academic career when he finally decided that he'd rather be brewing. One thing led to another, and he took his first full-time brewing job in 1998 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Over the next few years, he worked at two other breweries as well until 2004. He set out on his own by founding the Duck Rabbit Brewery. And here he is 20 years later, still at it. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So your brewery, Duck Rabbit, is known as the dark beer specialist. Is this correct? Because I've been to your brewery, by the way.
Oh, wonderful.
In 2015, 2014? No,
Yeah.
2015. We were driving, my husband and I were driving, my then boyfriend, now husband, and I were driving into South Carolina, and we've been to Farmville to go specifically to your brewery, and whoever was working gave me a Duck Rabbit tin tacker that is in our laundry room. So I just want to say I have been to your brewery, and I think your beers are excellent. I want to know first thing though, is the reason you brew what you call an ABA or American Black Ale, is this because you're a dark beer specialist, or is this something that you actually really like to brew?
Well, both, of course.
Of course.
But, part of our gimmick is we don't make anything that I don't want to make. If you're getting a Duck Rabbit beer, you're getting a beer that, we produce because I love it and I want to share it, not because an accountant told me that would be the path to success. So yeah, no, I love it for sure. But still, we have a little marketing angle, this dark beer thing,
Mhm.
and this fit nicely into that. I happen to think it's delicious. Just a little side note, edit this if you need to, but it's my wife's favorite of the beers we make. So there you go.
Lovely. Well,
Nice.
now, yeah, you got to keep her happy. So, got to keep brewing that. When
Yeah.
did you start brewing this beer, Hoppy Bunny?
Okay, so I didn't do my research well enough to look that up ahead of time.
That's all right.
Uh,
You've been around for what, 20 something,
20
20
years.
years?
Yeah,
20?
yeah.
Wow.
This is 20 right now. I
Oh,
think
wow.
we started that one in 2013.
Okay.
I don't think I'm far wrong when I say that. I mean, it could have been 2014, but I think it was 2013.
That makes sense given the fact that 2013 is kind of the like top and pinnacle of black IPAs.
Right,
And
right.
so it would make sense that you would um you would brew this beer at that time period. But you call it an ABA. You don't call it a black IPA. Is there a reason you don't call it a black IPA
Sure,
or is
sure. And labeling your beers, naming the beers, categorizing the beers, that's all marketing, of course. That's not brewing.
Mhm.
And heaven forbid I tell anybody else how to market their beers. Do whatever you can to sell it. But for me, it felt like this beer, this style, has no historical connection to India or trade in India or shipping to India or anything like that. And it's certainly not pale. Um,
Fair?
in my mind, IPA is just a way of telling the consumer that it's a hoppy beer,
Yeah.
which that I mean, there's value in that.
Mhm.
I don't want to pretend there isn't, but it strikes my ear like a clang. To me, yeah, that didn't sound right. And I didn't want to call it a Cascadian black ale, although I like that name a lot, but
Mhm.
we're a long way from the Cascades. So American Black Ale felt to me like it conveyed, at least among people who know beer styles, it conveyed what it is, and didn't feel like I was saying something weird and false and awkward.
Got it. I understand. Because it isn't pale. I mean, I guess there's like cold IPA is not an ale though. It's a lager. So
All words have lost all meaning.
yeah,
But
I think
well,
IPA is like you said, it's a marketing term. And so it says this is hoppy. What is
sure.
I nitpick when it's like, what is a West Coast to someone? What does that mean to a casual drinker? What does a New England IPA mean to a certain drinker? So I get your trepidation, I guess, to call it that. So, but at the same time, I like I don't, are you the only one that brews an ABA? I don't think I've ever,
No, oh no. We're not the only ones by any means. Certainly that's
yeah.
yeah, that's out.
I guess it's because this beer style is almost, and I'm going to use the word antiquated, even though it's 2013. That was 11 years ago. Um, it's a style that is fallen out of favor,
Yeah.
yet you
Joy
still brew it.
Yeah, I think that's
Joyfully,
amazing.
almost everything we do at Duck Rabbit is antiquated. And we're happy about it. We celebrate
You
the
still
fact.
have wooden mash tuns and
No. I guess I mean more
No,
stylistically.
I know.
I mean, look, almost every other brewery out there, every new the young guys, they're all mainly canning their beers.
Hmm.
We mainly bottle our beers. We're stuck in the past. We none of the beers that we make are sort of hip and trendy styles that have emerged in the past 5 years. The vast majority of what we make are styles that have been around forever and ever. Now, American Black Ale has not been around forever and ever, but
Hmm.
it is antiquated, like you said.
I know I mean, yeah. Well, that's the pace of beer. Styles show up, they disappear. And
Yeah.
so things that aren't popular kind of they get,
Of course.
shoved aside. And then well, like, what's popular right now is dark milds. You're a dark beer brewery. Would you brew a dark mild? Do
Oh,
you brew a dark
absolutely.
mild?
we have brewed dark mild. It's a style that I love. And maybe we should try it again. It was a long time ago that we brewed it. It has been my experience, and again, this is old and things may have changed, but that in the US, very low ABV beers are a hard sell. I know of one brewery in Texas that sells a dark mild, if I'm remembering right, and the name of the beer is Commercial Suicide.
Dark milds are in New England, where I live. Dark milds are becoming more and more popular.
I love the style.
So hopefully, yeah. So anyway, back to the black ale. Yeah. I wanted to ask, do you do anything special ingredients? Do you do anything special for the brewing process? The hops, what are you using for hops? What's the profile of this beer?
Yeah. So there are a few questions in there.
Yes, there are. Sorry.
One of the things that we do special for this beer is special among the things that we do. I'm sure other breweries for certainly are doing this too, but we do far more individual hop additions here than we do on any of our other beers. So we're adding hops standardly, in the boil for bitterness, of course. But then we're doing multiple late hop additions as well as multiple dry hop additions. This beer uses far more hops, per unit volume than anything else that we brew. Again, that's not to say, there are other breweries out there who have different specialties that will have a different story to tell, but yeah, so that's probably the thing that sets this beer apart among our beers more than anything else. But there's also the hop varieties we use. We use some varieties in here that we don't use in any of our other beers. Chief among them being Motueka, a New Zealand hop, which maybe is a little weird to use in something that you're calling an American black ale, but it's a hop that I really love and I wanted to showcase, and this seemed like a good spot for it. So yeah, the varieties of hops, the quantities of hops, and then the malt backbone is quite roasty. It's certainly pitch black. I mean, it's inky black. But I wanted roasty without an overpowering kind of acrid bitterness, like burnt character. I want the roast to be present. I don't want it just to be black in color, but no roast flavor. But I didn't want it so much that it would overpower the hop character that we've worked so hard to put in there. I don't know how much that answers your question.
That was great. That was great. So you sort of touched upon this, but can you talk about how you there's no better person to answer this since you only brew dark beers, but how do you think about dark malts? Roasted barley obviously is different from chocolate malt, it's different from black patent and everything. And so when you're formulating recipes, and particularly this ABA recipe, what are you looking for in your dark malts, and how are you thinking about how the hop flavors? And like, I found it interesting how you talked about an early edition of bittering hops in this beer. Is that to balance off the malts here? And like, I guess, how do you think of this, the recipe formulation holistically?
Sure. So when I'm coming up with a new recipe, normally I start by thinking about historical examples, by thinking about, what beers are out there that exemplify this style, and what sort of historical techniques have they used. It was a little different with this one because there isn't a long history. So the second part of recipe formulation for me is just envisioning in my mind a flavor profile at which I want to shoot, right? Thinking about the hop flavors, the hop characteristics. You had asked a little bit about the early hops for bittering and the purpose of that. if we were to add only late hops, as a lot of the kind of like New England IPAs are kind of exemplified by, if not only late hops,
Yeah.
predominantly late hops. You get that juicy hop aroma and hop flavor, but you don't get much alpha acid isomerization. And
Right.
without the alpha acid isomerization, you're not getting much bitterness, which is great in a style in which you don't want much bitterness. But this, I wanted that hop bitterness. I wanted the hops to sort of come through in multiple layers of kind of flavor expression. So the bitterness from the alpha acids, the aromas from the volatile oils, the flavor that you get from late hop additions. I wanted that all in there. And so that's the purpose for the early hops. In terms of malt, right. You can think of a stout. In our stouts, we typically use a lot of unmalted roast barley, which I love. I think that's a wonderful grain and it's delicious. I didn't think it was appropriate for this. I thought that it would, again, over express the sort of burnt character that would run the
Acrid
risk
bitterness.
of
Yeah.
of giving a bitterness that competes with the hop bitterness.
Right.
So for roasty character, what I ended up using was 3 different grades or some varieties, I guess, of a malt called Carafa, made by Weyermann, a German maltster, which is, and we do use the Carafa for some of our other brews in smaller quantities. The vast majority of malt we use, virtually everything except for that, is produced in the U.S. But that Carafa, I just haven't found a substitute in a U.S. maltster that does quite what that does, which again is give me the roasty character, the roasty flavor without an overpowering burnt bitterness.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Love it. Thank you. And I love, well, this is what I love, and this is why I love talking to brewers, is because they can articulate the thought, like none of this happens by accident.
Indeed.
And I love that. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I like talking about beer.
Oh, we also love talking about, you're come to the right place. So I have one final question for you.
Yep.
Since you're the dark beer specialist, what is the future of dark beers? Do you see anything on the horizon? Are you sticking with traditional? Are you going to keep brewing the ABA? What's on the horizon, I guess, for you and the whole ilk of
Right.
dark beer?
So the broader question, what's on the horizon for the whole ilk? Holy moly, I wish I knew.
Yeah, then we'd all be millionaires if we knew.
I'd give plenty to know the answer to that. So yeah, I don't know that. As far as what's on the horizon for us, certainly we're going to continue brewing the traditional styles that we've brewed. We have over the past few years, and this really started just a little bit before the pandemic and accelerated even more during the pandemic. We've started branching out and doing some things that aren't traditional styles. These are typically, one-offs, very specialty products. But this is just, trying to take advantage of an opportunity to expand our palate and appeal to the beer drinker that wants something they haven't had before, right? This is a joke and a cliche, but there's a kernel of truth in it, of the consumer who tastes a beer and says, "Boy, that's delicious. I'm never having that again." So we need to appeal even to that consumer. So we continue to do dark beers. We branch out. We're doing some variations on these styles, and trying to help people appreciate the traditional styles that got me to love beer in the first place that I've never abandoned.
That's great.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I did not hear you say that you're going to make a dark hard seltzer though, so thank you.
No.
So Paul, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about the brewery, how can they do that? Social media, website?
Yeah. So for the big picture about the brewery and the history of the brewery, our website, which is at duckrabbitbrewery.com, is a great option. That's a little less useful for the day-to-day, hey, next week we're coming out with this new beer. For that, Facebook will be the best spot. Yep.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program today, Paul. We really, really appreciate your insight into all things dark beer and ABA. I learned a
My
lot, so I
pleasure.
really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Paul.
for having me. Yep.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers.
And we'll be back with Matt White of Beechcrest Brewing in Oregon to talk about his award-winning double black IPA.
At Estrella Galicia, they are passionate brewers. Their meticulous care extends to each ingredient, recognizing that water transcends its mere classification as an ingredient. It is a key player that intricately shapes and defines their distinctive beer recipes. They don't have a hidden spring or any secret water source. They proudly utilize water from the local reservoir, which is an ecologically protected UNESCO biosphere reserve. The water is of exceptionally high quality and has a low mineral profile. In essence, the water that any brewmaster would dream of.
Matt White opened Beechcrest Brewing Company with his wife Amy in December of 2018. A former career musician and educator, Matt formed Beechcrest around a love of great beer, the beauty of the Oregon coast, and great music. He began his brewing story in Denver, starting as a home brewer, then working for small local breweries, and eventually taking a course with Tom Hennessy, author of multiple brewing operations books and owner of Colorado Boy Brewing in Montrose, Colorado. A lover of classic and modern styles, Matt's approach to Beechcrest's brewing lineup has been both honor the traditional styles and dabble in experimentation. Beechcrest has been fortunate to expand in its 5-year-to-date brewing history from a 3-barrel nano to a 7-barrel pub brewery, and also added a wood fire pizza kitchen and an event and concert space. Matt is still active in the music community, playing in several ensembles, directing the local big band, and getting in beach walks with his golden retriever, all while being a one-man beer-making show in the Beechcrest Brewery. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are things out in, where is Beechcrest on the Oregon coast?
It's called Central Oregon Coast. We are technically in a little town called Glen Eden Beach, but it's a very little town. So the most recognizable town that most people would know if you're familiar with the area would be Lincoln City. We're just about 5 to 10 minutes south of that.
Cool.
No clue where that is.
I have some clue. I lived in Oregon. I lived in Eugene for a year, so I know where Lincoln
Okay,
City
relative
is.
to Eugene, where is it relative to Eugene?
So if you go straight west to the coast from Eugene, generally you'll end up in Florence, and that's
This way.
about 2 hours south of us.
2 hours south. Okay, perfect. Got it.
Okay.
I know exactly where you are.
Yes.
So from Portland, we're like 2.5 hours if you're driving to the southwest.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. And so you have a small brewery, and you are brewing a double black IPA. Can you tell us a little bit about your double black IPA? And why is it a double? Why are you that's something that I don't think I've had a double black IPA in a decade.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would love one. So
yeah, well, my answer as to why it's a double, it might be a little unsatisfactory. It's more so just like that's kind of what I wanted to brew. So there wasn't any
fine.
Necessarily any reason, but I do think that pairing a strong ABV with a like impactful, it's kind of a beer that like everything is supposed to be kind of turned up. So like the malts are turned up, the ABV's turned up, the IBU's turned up. So like, it's just kind of like overly aggressive in a lot of ways.
Is making it a double, so like how how much more like debittered malt are you using? How much more stuff are you using hop wise? I think on your website it said it was like 80 IBU. That's a lot.
It is, but on the West Coast, that's not a
Fair.
lot, comparatively. And I mean, you guys probably know this. I think it's over 70 or something like that. It kind of becomes undetectable. So it's right at that threshold anyways. In terms of debittered malts, you guys may know this as well, but it doesn't actually take a lot to turn something black, to turn something to be very dark. So I can actually pull up the recipe right here. It's just over 5%. And I use both a debittered black barley malt and a debittered black wheat malt.
Why the use of wheat?
Just like the little bit of mouthfeel that you get from that. There's also oats in it, so we're going for like
Oh wow, okay.
something that's gonna be like super dry. It's gonna have that kind of nicer like mouthfeel. It's kind of funny, like the lines begin to blend between like double black IPA and like American stout at some point, but we're talking about like a big malty beer. But that I would say with the black IPA, I think the distinction would be we're really trying to minimize like roasty, smoky, those kind of like flavors. It's got a little bit of like crystal malt in there. So there's definitely like a strong malt presence, but we're not, in terms of comparing to a stout, we're really trying to like avoid the roastiness, that kind of, yeah.
Right.
And did you guys start, you've been open since 2018? So when did this beer start showing up in your repertoire?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so we just had our 5-year anniversary, and I think
Nice.
we've been making Kraken good for like a year and a half,
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
not that long. Not
No,
that
this
long.
is not a original to the brewery recipe.
Nope, nope.
Why
But that
one
was a
day you were
style that I
just,
really liked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah.
interrupt.
No, you're good. I was just like, what, I don't know a brewery in like what, 2022 that was like, you know what I want to make.
yeah, that's a very interesting choice. Can you give us some background on that?
Well, sure. At Beechcrest, we're not like you said, we're small. We have a 7-barrel kind of pub kind of style brewery, and it's a real just like ethos position of ours to try to offer like a big variety of beers and not necessarily just be driven by what we think will kind of attract the most amount of people. So like we have core beers, we have flagship beers that we try to like cast a wide net with, you know what I mean? Like a blonde, we have West Coast IPAs, juicy IPA, lagers, all that kind of stuff. But we really look at the kind of like second half of our tap list as an opportunity to like brew stuff that like we're excited about and that we think will probably connect to like people who are really into beer, but maybe like not gonna connect with everybody that comes through the door. And I think we're fine with that. So I think Black IPA kind of fits into that category. It's definitely a little more obscure, like you said. Like we used to see more of it maybe like 10 years ago, and now not so much. And it was just always a style that I really liked. We moved out here from Denver, so there were some like versions of Black IPA that some folks were brewing, like Twisted Pine had a really cool one, and trying to think of maybe some others that were kind of inspirational. But it was just like something that we really liked, and it is a little more obscure, and I think we kind of like that too.
Yeah, cool.
And it won a medal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
judges and people who have it like it. So I want to try it. What hops do you use in this beer?
So the bittering is done with Magnum. That's pretty standard. But in terms of the hops that give it flavor and aroma, Centennial, Chinook, Simcoe, which pretty classic.
That is classic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a fan of all three of those hops. I use Simcoe a decent amount. Chinook I love for whatever reason. The way Chinook goes in darker beers really works for me. We have like an imperial stout that we use entirely made with Chinook that
Hmm.
yeah, there's just something about that interaction I really like.
Yeah, I love those hops.
But we're going for that kind of like pine, that it's really kind of Pacific Northwestern, you know what I mean? Resinous, piney, like kind of minimizing the fruity and citrusy kind of qualities.
Yeah. You call your Black IPA a Black IPA. Many people in the Pacific Northwest refer to a beer called Cascadian Dark Ale. Is there a difference? And if so, what is that difference?
Well, I think this is really just a matter of opinion. So I think for some people they're the same thing. I do have an opinion on it. And this is based on examples that I've tasted. Not based on like kind of what the recommended parameters are, in like beer judging. But to me, and I didn't even know about Cascadian Dark until I moved out here. Nobody in Colorado was making Cascadian Dark, which makes sense. It's not in the Cascades, so
Rocky Dark Ale.
It would make sense that they don't use that naming convention. But to me, a Cascadian Dark, overall in terms of SRM, can be like closer to like a dark brown.
Okay.
And can have elements of like roastiness in it. I've had some Cascadian Darks. Well, I don't know whether or not they fall into the stylistic category, but I've had a few that definitely have that like roasted coffee kind of vibe going, To me, the goal of the Black IPA should be almost like if you close your eyes and had a sip, you might mistake it for something of a lighter color. It should be those roasty qualities are as minimal as possible, and you kind of achieve that by using debittered malts and things. And then and the color should be, I think, as dark as you can get it. Like, to call it a Black IPA and it's brown to me is like a little weird. It should be like very, very opaque, very, very dark.
Cool. Thank you.
So that's the reason why your Black IPA is called a Black IPA, because it's quite dark and it's not this like dark brown coffee.
Right.
I do want to say the grammarian in me finds it interesting that you call it a double Black IPA as opposed to a black double IPA.
Yeah.
I think you probably did that on purpose. Am I correct?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, it's like, when a guitar player is lining up their effects pedals, like which one hits the line first kind of thing, you know what I mean? So like, what do I call it? A double black. Okay, yeah. So the style is Black IPA and it is a double Black IPA versus what were you saying? Black
double IPA.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, man, it's just kind of a semantic argument, isn't it?
Okay. Sorry for that.
No, apologize. I think that's really interesting. You probably could go either way, right?
Could you, Don? Could you go either way?
I don't know. English isn't my first language.
So
and I'm Canadian.
Yeah,
so,
that's
like,
true.
What's
All right,
that
yeah.
about?
So yeah. He's sorry. Don't worry about him.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting that you think that, because if this Cascadian, what's the hop profile? Because I feel like if it has a coffee, like a dark brown coffee note, and then resin and pine, that seems.
Do you think that's conflicting?
I feel like that's conflicting.
I feel like citrus and tropical fruits and stuff is so much more conflicting, but I think pine and roastiness don't necessarily clash if handled right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and out here in the Pacific Northwest, we love that like pine.
Oh man, I remember like your IPA when I lived there in 2011. IPAs regular single IPA is 7%, and then you got the double IPA is like 8.5, and then you got the triple IPA which is 10, and it's just like how much like and because this is 2011, so this is like at the height, and it's like how much IBU can I punch you in the face with? And you're gonna love it. And is that still? I mean, I haven't lived in Oregon for years. Is that still the case? Do you find? Like,
no, we're post IBU wars kind of. I think. I mean, I'm with you on that. I think for a while we were making these beers that were just so out of balance, and I think that we've kind of swung back to like a little more in balance. But you mentioned like as you go up, higher in the ABVs, single, double, triple, all this. And the IBUs, it's interesting. I found a lot of doubles and triples that actually drink not as hoppy, because I think when you balance it out with so much malty sweetness, like the really hoppiest drinking beers to me are the ones that are really dry. That finish out super dry so that all that like hoppiness can just like smack you in the face. But then you get into these higher ABVs and there's so much ethanol sweetness that you're like the IBUs kind of fall back into balance, even though all the kind of stats are pushed up.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
remember
I
that
think that
from
addressed the first thing you said. Oh yeah, in terms of styles, what I'm seeing now is a um a real change towards late editions. The classic IPA thing was like, massive early editions. You get that thing super bitter, and then you do some whirlpool and everything. And now a lot of people are, kind of taking a note from the kind of haze craze that also seems to have crested. But I think it changed the way people make IPAs, and now we're like, emphasizing late editions. They don't necessarily have to have that hazy body. They can be drier, but we're still getting that like big kind of like aromatic and fruit kind of citrusy punch on the nose and in the flavor, and we're not necessarily pushing like bitterness. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because yeah, I go to Oregon every year and yeah, the beers feel drier, more fruit forward, not as bitter, yeah, I think everyone's kind of first there's like let's smack me in the face with IBU. Then there's haze where there's like no IBU, and now there's this kind of nice balance
Yeah, and I
where
think it
I
is
like
going
that.
back to balance. Yeah.
That's
And I think
excellent.
also that's
Ah,
that's a product of all these new hops, that have hit the market, where
Sure.
the emphasis is on that flavor profile. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? The fruitiness and yeah, all that.
yeah.
Are there any other black IPAs being made right now in Oregon, or CDAs, if you will, if there's two different things
So
that
one of the,
yeah.
the bigger breweries on the coast is Pelican Brewing,
Hmm.
and they make their Christmas beer that they release, late fall. I think they call it Bad Santa, is a CDA.
Okay. It's
And that's
nice.
actually
Yeah.
one that I was kind of talking about, where it's like it's actually more kind of like a dark brown, you
Hmm.
know, and it has a little bit of that kind of roast to it. So that's one of the uh kind of examples I was mentioning.
Hmm.
Are there any others? Like I can't think of any. I can think like Barley Browns, I know makes one, but like I
I
didn't know if
haven't
there
had
was
there, but I bet it's
anyone
good.
else. I bet it is really good. Their beers are excellent.
Well, you lived out here. You remember McMinimans?
I do remember McMenamins.
So
Yes.
they've over, however long I've been here, they've released several CDAs. They usually call it CDA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they real CDAs the way you see it, or are they black IPAs?
I would say that they do qualify as CDA to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun fact
Interesting.
about my local McMenamins, the bass player for Cherry Pop and Daddies was the bartender there, and
Which
he
was
was
that?
the one on 13th Street,
Oh, in
like
Portland. Cool.
in Eugene,
Oh, in
and
Eugene. Oh,
yeah,
right. Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're from Eugene, and he was a nice
Nice.
guy, and he used to give us free shots, and that is why we drank there. And they
That
had a great happy hour. But anyway,
I used to play with a trumpet player that knew all those guys.
it was yeah, Eugene was nice to live in because it was small it was large but small. It had a small town vibe to it, which I really really liked. But then I really hate your time zone, so I had to go back to New England.
Oh, okay.
So you sort of touched upon this, but do you see future development in black IPA? Like, do you have any desire to try a black version of cold IPA or hazy IPA or brute IPA? Will we see a black brute IPA?
Man, brewed is one of those styles that really tried to make an impact, and I think it just kind of fell away
Well,
real.
it made an impact, just not.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Go
It
ahead.
made
Go
an
ahead.
impact for like 2 months, and then it was
Yeah.
gone.
Um, to me, a black hazy just sounds like an oxymoron almost. Like I feel like that those two flavor profiles just can't be joined. But perhaps that's for lack of imagination on my part, but probably something I wouldn't attempt. Um, what was the other thing you mentioned too?
Oh, I don't know. Any black cold IPA?
Oh, now that's a cool idea. Then you're almost into like Baltic Porter territory, kind of. You're talking about like a strong lager, but then you'll kind of over hop it. I mean, it's a really cool idea.
I guess that'd be like a hoppy Schwarzbierish.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
like a really strong Hobby Schwartz beer. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like blending lines and all that. Cold
Yeah.
IPA is the style that I actually really like. I love
me
lager,
too.
and I always kind of saw cold IPA as like maybe just rebranding IPL as IPA so that it would sell better. But I do think that there are distinct differences, or they're trying to make distinct differences between IPL and cold IPA. And it's a style I really like.
That's an excellent style. And there's West Coast Pilsner too. Could be a West Coast Black Pilsner.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
You can, these are free suggestions.
Yes.
So you know.
Royalty free.
Yeah.
Feel free to name the beer after us, though.
Right on. Right on.
All right, Don, now you've gone too far.
Yeah, no, it's going to be the Beach Crest All About Beer Black Brewed IPA.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Matt, thank you. All right, we're done. You're done here. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If there's if people want to talk to you about your new Black Brewed IPA that apparently you're brewing, how can people reach out? Social media, website?
Yeah, Beachcrest Brewing is on Facebook and Instagram. We have a website, beachcrestbrewing.com. Come check us out. If you're on the Oregon coast, swing by. We're a fun place. We got great live music and awesome wood-fired pizza. And I would think a pretty fun list of beers on tap.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Glenhaven Beach. Everybody should look it up.
Glenhaven Beach or just Lincoln City. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on the program today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.
Don, now I really want a Black IPA, but those breweries are not close.
Yeah, good luck finding one.
It was so much fun to learn about the style. And it breaks my tiny sweet heart that more people aren't brewing this beer.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. I liked these are professional brewers, so they're very good at articulating things, and so the difference between a CDA and a Black IPA is something I guess I sort of intuitively knew there was a difference, but I would never be able to put it into words the way that Matt did. So I really like that, and now, like you, I really look forward to having my next ones so that I can look for those flavors and those differences. So
absolutely,
yeah.
It's a great style. People, write your local brewery like you'd write a congressman
Yes.
or elected official and demand more Black IPAs and CDAs in your tap lists.
Yes, I agree.
As I shake my finger like I don't know. Anyway, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And once again, if you're feeling generous, please visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. If you have any questions for the experts, email podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting the show through advertising. Don, how can people reach out to you?
Oh, on Threads, X, and Instagram, I am at the Dawn of Beer, and I love receiving emails. So drop me an email, don@thedawnofbeer.com. How about you, Em?
I am at Pints and Panels across all social media, and my website is www.pintsandpanels.com. Here's a final word from our sponsor.
At Estrella Galicia, as passionate brewers, safeguarding the invaluable resource of water is at the core of their commitment. Through a combination of sustainable practices and innovative technology, they've significantly reduced their water consumption year after year. In 2008, for example, their water usage was at around 5 liters per barrel of beer brewed. Fast forward to today, and they're proud to report that they significantly slashed that figure to 3.6 liters. This achievement is not just a testament to their dedication to brewing excellence, but also a demonstration of the broader commitment to environmental responsibility. Their commitment extends beyond the confines of the brewery. They're dedicated to preserving the natural treasure of water for the city of A Coruña. By adopting environmentally friendly practices, they aim to contribute to the long-term sustainability of this vital resource. To learn more about Estrella Galicia, follow them on Instagram at Estrella Galicia, USA.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the newsletter and social media. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Make it Black IPA, damn it.
Write your brewery.